Yeah. So we're going to start with chapter 5 of the book of Esther. Here, chapter 5 of the book of Esther. This is chapter 5 right there. So Esther said to go out and fast for me for 3 days. And after that, I'll go and approach King Ahasuerus, asking for him to save the Jewish people. It was on the third day, Vatalbash Esther Malchut, and Esther wore the garments of the king, of the royal garments. And then in doing so, and she stood in the courtyard of the king, Apnimis, the inner courtyard, Nochach Beis HaMelech, opposite the king's throne. So the king was sitting on his throne, Bebeit HaMalchut, in the palace, Nochach Petach HaBayit, facing the entrance. Rashi says, Big Day Malchut. These are the garments of the king. Rabboteinu say that this idea that she was wearing the garments of the king is a hint, Shelav Shah Ruach HaKodesh, that she became clothed by the divine spirit. As it states, V'ruach u'avsha at Ramashai. So we see from here that this is a reference to Esther having divine prophecy at this moment. And so when the king saw Queen Esther, Omedet b'chatzer, standing in the courtyard, Nasachem be'inav, she found favor in his eyes. Vayoshen hamelch Esther et shavita zahav asher biyado, and the king stuck out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Vatikrav Esther, and Esther came close. Vatiga berosh hashavit, and she touched the head of the scepter. Vayomer la melech, and the king said to her, Malach Esther Malka. And so the king said, Malach Esther Malka, what's going on with you, Queen Esther? Ma bakashatech ad chatzia malchus v'nasin lach. What's your request? Up until half of the kingdom, and I'll give to you what you want. Rashi says, this is the strange phrase, up until half the kingdom. So Rashi explains, Davar shu be'emtzo b'chatzia malchus u'beit hamikdash, meaning to say, Rashi says, Ahasuerus says, I'll give you up until half the kingdom. Something that's worth half of the kingdom, i.e. the temple. This is something that would destroy the kingdom. They started to build a temple, rebuild the temple in the time of Koresh. Umeit, and Koresh died. And then after Koresh, they started to rebuild it with Tziva, Levato Hamlacha. And Ahasuerus commanded them to stop. But the literal explanation of the verse is, Afim tishali mimeni chatzia malchus atenach. The literal explanation is, I'll even give you half of the kingdom. Vatomer Esther imal melch tov. Queen Esther said, if it finds favor in the king's eyes, Yavo HaMelech v'Haman hayom el mishteh asher asitilo. Let the king and Haman come today to the party that I have made for him. Rashi says, Rabbeinu Amrim Ta'amim Arbei B'Davar Mara Esther Shezimna Taman. The rabbi said many reasons why did Esther invite Haman. One reason is Kedelakano B'Melech U'Besarim. One reason is to raise jealousy from the king and from the other princes. Sha'amelech Yachshov Shehu Chashuk Elav Yargenu. She wanted the king to suspect that there was something going on between Haman and Esther. So she was trying to get him jealous. And there are other reasons. So the Gemara Megillah lists the other reasons that Rashi doesn't list. One is that she didn't want to give Haman any time to defend himself, so she wanted to, nail him right in the presence of Achashverosh. Also, since Achashverosh was very fickle, she wanted to make him commit at the moment that Haman was in front of him. Another answer was she wanted the Jews to pray harder. So if they saw that Esther was very tight with Haman, they would think that they had no choice. And so they would pray rather than rely upon Esther. The commentaries also explain that it says, Yavo HaMelech V'Haman Hayom. When it says that the king come with Haman today, that's, if you take the first letter of those four words, you spell out God's name, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. This is a sign that sometimes where we don't see God in the darkest places of humanity, Achashverosh and Haman, nevertheless, God is there. Yavo HaMelech V'Haman Hayom. Ela Mishteh Asher Asiti Lo, to the party that I've made for him. Vayomer HaMelech Ela Mishteh. Rashi says Mishteh is a reference to the party, because every meal is called after the wine that's served there. Vatan Esther, Vayomer HaMelech Esther Mishteh Yain. So the king said to Esther during the party of the wine, what's your request? Will be given to you. What's your request? So first she says to him, while he's on his throne, he says, what do you want? And she says, a party with you and Haman. And now he's at the party, he says, what do you want? Vatan Esther, and Esther again responds, my request is the following. If I find favor in your eyes, and if the king would like to do favor in my eyes, says, if I find favor in your eyes, let the king and Haman come to the party that I'll make for them, and tomorrow I shall fulfill the king's word. Rashi says, Masha bekashmi money, ko ayamim legalotecha et ami vet moharati. Rashi says, this was a hint. She's saying, tomorrow I'm going to tell you what you've been asking from me this whole time. Who are my people? Where do I come from? So Haman goes out on that night. He's very fortunate, happy, good heart. The Kirot Samanas Mordechai B'Shar Melech will come v'ozami menu, and when Haman sees Mordechai in the gates of the king, and he did not get up, Mordechai did not get up and did not move for him, and Haman was filled with anger about Mordechai. This behavior of Haman is something we should all take to heart. Because this behavior about Haman is in effect really us. How so? We could have everything going right for us. Our lives could be so filled with blessings. And then one little thing happens, which doesn't happen exactly the way we wanted it to happen. And so instead, all we could focus on is the one thing that's wrong. Instead of focusing on all the good things that we have. One little thing is not perfect, not perfectly going according to the plan we have. That's all we focus on. Here's Haman. Everything is going his way. He's the number one advisor to the king. The queen has invited just him and Achashverosh. He's so happy. And he sees one little guy, Mordechai. He's a nobody. Not getting up and bowing down to him. And that sends him into this tailspin. That's us. That's the message, is that that's us. That's us. This all comes from a lack of gratitude. As we said, Haman, Amalek means arrogant. A lack of gratitude to Hashem. If we would have gratitude for everything, we wouldn't focus on what we don't have, but we focus on what we do have. Vayisapek Haman, and Haman was restrained. Rashi says he was trying to hold back his anger because he was afraid to attack Mordechai without permission. Vayisapak Haman, vayavo beiso, vayishlach vayaveyaso avav as deresh ishto. So Haman restrained himself and he came to his house and he went and he brought his beloved and his wife Zeresh. Vayisaper lahem Haman et kavod ashro v'rov banav. And Haman told them about his great wealth and his many children, and about everything the king had done for him. Niso. How you doing? Everything okay? What's the matter? Oh, you got a big smile on your face. What page are we on? Tell Moshe what page you're on. Did you bring Colby? Wow. Oh, don't show them that there's stuff in the oven they could take out. If you think they'll figure it out on their own? I'll give them afterwards. Haman restrained himself. And he told them all about his wealth and his many children, Verov Banav, and his many sons, that how the king had elevated him over the princes and the servants of the king. See, we just talked about very, very important spiritual message from the book of Esther. Here's the spiritual message. That Haman had everything going for him. Yet one thing wasn't going right, according to his plan, and that sent him into a tailspin. And that's from arrogance. If there's something that's going wrong, and we blame, and we get upset about it, instead of focusing on what's going right, Kobe, we should stop focusing on what's going wrong and start focusing on what's going right. And then it'll be an absolute blessing for us in our lives. But that's not the way the human mind works. If we have one hangnail, we'll be bothered by that more than all the hunger that's going on around the world. That's just the way our arrogant bodies work, our arrogant minds. So what we have to do hello. What we have to do in order to be the anti-Hamans, here, please, Moshe, bring your father a chumash, please. What we have to do in order to be the anti-Hamans is to focus, here, tell Kobe what page you're on, is to focus on, whenever we're feeling upset about something, is to focus on the gratitude of thanksgiving we have for Hashem, for all the blessings in our life. And if we do that, hello, Dan, if we do that, I promise, the anger will start to dissipate. The anger will start to dissipate. That's the key. Dan could tell you he's done a lot of happiness studies. I'm sure Dan has done the research to back this up. That the happiest people in the world are people who express their gratitude every day. And Haman is the opposite of that. All he focused on was Mordechai not bowing down. One little flea not bowing down, and that bothered him. It shouldn't have even registered. He had everything going for him. He had the wealth, he had the success, he had the connections. But that's what threw him into the frenzy. Hello. So what page are we on, Guy? Tell everybody what page we're on. 1380. Vayomer Haman, Afoivi, verse 12. Haman said, Haman. Hold on a second. So he says, Haman said, Afoivi Esther Malka ima melech el mishteh asher asata. And so Haman said, also Queen Esther did not only brought to the king to the party, ki emoti, the only one she brought was me. And also tomorrow, I am called and invited to be with her and the king. This is exactly the point. Haman says nothing. I'm grateful for nothing. He says this phrase explicitly. I am grateful for nothing. When I'm grateful for nothing. This is the source of, right here is the source of self-destruction. Haman is basically the whole concept of total self-destruction. When you can't appreciate what you have and only appreciate what you don't have, only look at what you don't have, it is the recipe for destruction of our lives. Every aspect of our lives will be destroyed unless we can learn this very important tool to just be grateful for what we do have. This is, if I can only impart one lesson to everybody in the yeshiva, that would be the lesson. Just remember to have gratitude for what we have in our life. And then we will never be arrogant. And that's exactly Haman. Haman says, Kol zeh einenu shoveh. None of this is worth anything to me. B'chol eis asher ani roeh. And every time that I see this Jew Mordechai, he was the opposite, and that's Amalek. Amalek is the numerical value of arrogance. Amalek is the value of 240, and arrogance is 240. Ram, to be exalted, Romemut. So that's Amalek. B'choet Amr Rabotenu, the rabbis taught, Shehaya Mar'elo Shtar. And why? The rabbis have to fill this in because it just makes no sense. Why Haman hates Mordechai so much. Excuse me. So the rabbis say, that Mordechai used to show Haman a sale that Shemacharot Smo Eved, that back in the day, Haman had sold himself to be a slave to Mordechai. Al Choser Mizonot, Kishinet Menu Roshei Gaisiot, Mordechai and Haman b'Milchama Achat. And Mordechai and Haman were both in the same army, and Haman didn't have enough food, so he said to Mordechai, sell me your food, and Mordechai said, sell me yourself, and so he has a contract that Haman works for him. So it reminds a little bit about Esau and Jacob. So Mordechai basically had the documents. Yeah, but the point is that that it was selling your brother, but here he wasn't brothers. Yeah. There's a lot of similarities. You're right. There's a lot of similarities between this story and the Joseph story. A lot of similarities, but the point is that Mordechai had something. According to the rabbis, they have to say that Mordechai had something over Haman. Because why else would he hate him so much? It doesn't make any sense. By the way, I want to stop for a second. Have people here read The Golden Age? Have you read the end of the Golden Age by Frank Foer? Yeah. Have you read that? What did you think about that?
Very depressing, sad and scared.
Yeah, but my question is just stuff. Well, the whole story here is about the story about anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews. Question is, and now you can't find a nicer family than the Four family, and more talented, capable. I love them, and I'm not criticizing Frank Foer in any respect. But my question is what's going on with the Jewish people in America different than what's going on in America at large? Or is it its own thing? Meaning to say, there's a lot of extremism in this country going on right now. A lot of people under attack, a lot of minorities being endangered.
First of all, the rate of hate crimes for Jews has gone up more than in any other group, right?
Right.
Second is 42%.
But
disproportionate hate crime.
Yeah.
So it's not just extremism. And the other point he makes is the Jewish moment is over, right? There was a moment where, and parts of this may seem uncomfortable for us, but the most important novelists were Jewish. The most important people in Hollywood were Jewish. There was a disproportionate impact that Jews had on American society. And his point is that's over. And if you look just at Oscar nominations, it's true.
Well, what about if you look at the Biden cabinet? Every single person in the Biden cabinet is Jewish. Every single person. Yeah, that's what I read. Every single. I don't know. Like they went through it's like the overwhelming. It's hard to say. It's the everybody there is Jewish, so it's hard to say that the moment is over. Like how many Supreme Court justices are Jewish now? Nobody. Kagan, fine. That's it. Just one. And how many clerks are Jewish? And I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that that moment is over. That's the case. Oh well, that's not going to stop anybody.
Jews are no longer have any place in our society to be cast out, just isn't that true? And that we are the moment of like the 20th century meritocracy where you get ahead no matter where you get ahead based on how well you did. That the case it makes is that was good for the Jews, and that's when the Jews were always during the society, and that has now changed. The meritocracy and how Jews did are connected.
We'll see. I wasn't. Is there something going on against the Jewish people in this country, which is deeply concerning? Yes, I agree with that. Is this an indication that it's, well, I guess my two caveats are, I'm not convinced that what's going on against the Jews is as pervasive as he's arguing. Maybe it's just limited to certain sectors of the people. Like he focuses a lot on Berkeley and Columbia. So maybe it's the upper academic left-wing elites are really having a moment with the Jewish people. And so like I didn't see him going into Missouri and going into like just the street.
The people will be attacked in Brooklyn. If you look out the Jewish aren't being attacked by college elites.
That's been going on for a long time.
Much worse.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, like, yeah, fine. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, it's gotten worse for a lot of people in this country. And that's the other thing. It's gotten worse for a lot of people in this country. Like, There's a lot of extremist hatred right now.
Got a lot better.
For who's it getting better?
That's the right.
I don't think that they would feel that way. I feel like,
Yeah, so much better in every way. An opportunity.
well, it's gotten better for Jews also in that sense. If you just look at opportunity,
It depends.
like, well, that's the other thing. Like, Jews are doing very well.
1930, we're way better.
Yeah.
The baseline is 1967. Unclear that we're it was 1972. Unclear how to become federal.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's a complicated topic. All right. Anyway, so maybe it's time to daven. Yes, time to daven. Now that we solved the world problems. But anyway,